Good afternoon and welcome. Welcome to the inaugural episode, the very first episode of the Ranch Report, where transparency lives. Today is Sunday, February the 1st, 2026, and my name is Mark Falcone. Before I get started, let me just say that the views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host, yours truly, and may not reflect the views, thoughts, and opinions of East Highlands Ranch, East Highlands Ranch Board of Directors, or their managing agent, the Management Trust. Again, welcome to all of you. I'm super excited and thrilled to be bringing you this podcast entitled The Ranch Report. I think it's just a fantastic way to communicate with you, the member, as well as to bring you information you might not hear otherwise. I have a grandiose plan for this platform, for this podcast, and I'm equally excited to see its evolution as we move forward together on this journey. So again, thank you all for being here. On tap today, we have three topics to discuss. The first one, I'll be providing you a recap of the board meeting that took place last Wednesday on the 28th of January. We will also discuss the Verizon cell tower conditional use permit, and we will end by talking about the upcoming East Highlands Ranch Board of Directors election that takes place later this spring, and a call for candidates. As we move forward here with the Ranch Report, we are going to be diving into many topics, and I'll be providing you with a lot of information and material. And I think it's important that I build credibility with all of you as the listeners. So what I like to do is just give you a snippet of who I am and my personality, as well as briefly talk about my professional background and briefly give you some insight into the HOA industry. So as I said before, I've lived in East Highlands Ranch for 32 years now. I still live in the same house that I purchased back in July of 1993 on the south end of the ranch off Clubview Drive, very near to the Ranch Meadows baseball diamond. And over those 32 years, I've seen our community grow, and I've seen the beauty and the allure that brought me to this community. But sadly, over the course of the last number of years, I think all of you, or most of you would agree, that I've actually seen and witnessed the decline of that same beauty and allure. I have a very strong, passionate type A personality. And over my 61 years on this earth, I realized that that type of personality does not mesh well with the majority of society. It's not that there is something inherently wrong with that personality, because there's not. A lot of individuals like the results that those of us with the type A personality can deliver. Where the rub comes in is with the behaviors associated with that personality. Behaviors such as intensity, drive, competitiveness, rigidness, and even a desire to be in control. It's those behaviors that tend to rub people the wrong way, make them feel stress, or make them feel uncomfortable. I share that with you only because you are probably going to experience that personality during these podcasts. I'm also a very passionate individual. I wear my emotions on my sleeve, and I'm easily read. So because of that, you will know instantly how I feel. I wish it wasn't so, but I'm very predictable. But that's the way the good Lord made me, and who am I to complain, right? Professionally, I spent the majority of my career in multi-unit retail management, where I led regional West Coast operations for the two largest retailers in the dietary supplement industry, and those two retailers being General Nutrition Centers, or GNC, and the Vitamin Shop. Both GNC and the Vitamin Shop are East Coast-based organizations, with GNC being headquartered out of Pittsburgh and the Vitamin Shop being based just across the Hudson River in Secaucus, New Jersey. And for those of you that have ever worked retail, you know that you are only as good as yesterday's numbers. Yesterday you're a hero, today you're sucking wind and you're a bottom feeder. It's just the nature of the beast when it comes to retail. And because of that, you live and die by your numbers. And you analyze those numbers every which way from Sunday. and you teach and educate your staff to do the same. So those numbers are always top of mind. The annual volume that I led at GNC was $120 million and $150 million at the Vitamin Shop. So it wasn't chump change. So when it comes to East Highlands Ranch is a $5.5 million operation. So that's what, 3.5%, 4% of the volume that I'm accustomed to. So when it comes to analyzing the finances for East Highlands Ranch, I mean, it really is a breeze. I also was a small business owner for 15 years. I owned and operated my own business. I took a business, or started a business rather, with zero market presence, zero revenue base, zero customer base, and built it into a business of a staff of 7, doing some incredible volume. I think the stat says that only 6% of every small business ever achieves. So that is probably my most proudest and greatest achievement of my career. And you also know, or many of you know, that I also worked for the management trust, who is contracted by the ranch to oversee the daily operations. I worked for the management trust inside the EHR operation as a compliance inspector. And I also have my certification for community management in the HOA industry. And speaking of the HOA industry, I've often said that this industry it's a weird duck in the respect that it's very passive with not a whole lot of accountability. And allow me to explain what I mean by that. Your management company, such as the management trust, they derive their revenue from contracts with their existing client base. So, for example, we contract with the management trust, and we pay the trust roughly about $16,000 a month, or about $192,000 to $193,000 a year to manage the EHR operation. They also derive income by going out and getting new associations to join their portfolio. Outside of that, there is no accountability when it comes to the financial performance of an association. All of the employees that work at an association, such as EHR, are employed by the management company. So all the employees you see on the campus of EHR are employed by the management trust. And their payroll is not paid by their employer. Their payroll is funded by you and by me through our member assessments. Important to keep that in mind. So these managers that oversee either an on-site or a group of 4 or 5 smaller communities, what they call a portfolio, there is no accountability to top-line revenue because you really cannot grow top-line, as top-line revenue is fixed as it's based on assessments. Now, some may want to argue that, well, your revenue you derive from fines is not fixed. That's actually fluid. And in some respects, a lot of respects, it's true, it is. But one thing to keep in mind that when it comes to revenues for fines, the majority of that revenue is washed on the back end of the P&L through expenses and labor to manage those fines. And even still, any residual revenue that may be derived from fines is really insignificant and immaterial to the overall top line, as that is really driven by your member assessments, and that really is fixed over the course of time, over the course of a year. And the only way to increase that top line revenue is by raising assessments. As you all know, we've done that over the last 5, 6, 7 years. So again, there's no accountability regarding the financial performance of the operation. And in many respects, your managers that manage a portfolio or manage an on-site such as EHR, there really is no initiative. And I know I'm painting the industry with a broad brush, but such as it is, it's true. There are some great managers out there, but there's also some very lackadaisical ones out there as well. So I just share that with you just to let you know that the industry is, in my opinion, very, very passive. So let's talk about the credentialing. So in an HOA, in order to manage an HOA, one has to be certified. Not that the state of California requires certification, because the state doesn't. However, the industry does require certification. Your management companies will require certification of their internal managers as well as any managers they hire externally. Your boards will also require certification. And there are a couple of privately held organizations that provide that certification and the education. And two that come to mind are the CAI, the Community Association Institute, and the CACM, the California Association of Community Management. And it's very easy to obtain your certification, especially with the CACM, as it only requires less than 40 hours of education. And that education is primarily focused on the Davis-Sterling Act. The Davis-Sterling Act is what governs and oversees the HOA industry in the state of California, often referred to as civil code, and ethics. So those are the two areas of focus, and you have to pass a series of tests in order to obtain that credential. And once you get your designation, your certification is good for 3 years. And in order to renew that certification, during the course of 3 years, you must continue to earn educational credits, and you must continue to take 2 requisite classes, another law series class, another civil code class, and another ethics class. So by virtue of obtaining a certificate certified as a community association manager, it confirms that you have a working knowledge of ethics, and it also confirms that you have a working operational knowledge of civil code. And that's important to keep in mind, because in the event that a manager has a board that may be going sideways and veering in the direction of violating the Davis-Sterling Act, as a manager, you have a ethical and professional responsibility to guide, persuade, direct that board away from going off the cliff and violating civil code. And any direction you provide must be noted in the minutes, whether or not that board accepts your direction and your guidance or not. It must be noted in the minutes, at the very least, to protect you as the manager. In the event you don't provide that guidance, or that guidance is not noted in the minutes, and that board does go sideways and does violate the Davis-Sterling Act, then potentially you as the manager could be culpable of violating civil code as well. It's important to keep that in mind, because we will eventually, in an upcoming episode, circle back and flush that out a little bit more and talk about it. So, again, I have my CCAM, my Certified Community Association Manager Certificate. I obtained that back in 2023. It's good for 3 years, so it expires this August of this year. Moving on to our agenda for this podcast, let's give you a recap regarding the board meeting that took place this past Wednesday. I'm not going to go through the whole agenda. I'm just going to keep it at a high level. Staff has been working diligently on identifying trip hazards on our common area pathways, the concrete areas. They employed the services of BPR Incorporated, and BPR has identified several areas that require grinding to the tune of $21,000 and saw cutting to the tune of about $28,000. So because it's only one estimate, one bid, staff is working on obtaining 2 additional bids to bring back to the board for approval. Keep in mind that these trip hazards are being identified on the common areas. So if you have sidewalks outside your home that are a trip hazard, that is not the ranch responsibility. That is the City of Highland responsibility. In addition to that, for those of you that use the ranch metal pool, you will have noticed that ever since we put the pavers in, that we have a significant issue with the buildup of what is called effervescence. It's that white chalky substance that you see on the pavers. Staff has worked to try to pressure wash that effervescence off, but it's not budging. And there really are 2 ways to get rid of it. And number one, you can try to get on your hands and knees and scrub it with a wire brush. And number 2 is to use a muriatic acid. But in order to use a muriatic acid, one must be well versed in its use, because any ill use of that acid has the propensity to permanently etch the pavers. But once that effervescence is removed, it's critical to make sure, number one, it is removed, it's dried, and then what, in my opinion, staff needs to do is go back and seal the pavers to prevent that effervescence buildup going forward. If you recall, during the campaign last year, there was one promise that I made to all of you, and that was to bring back the town hall homeowner forums that we used to have roughly over a decade ago. And in June of last year, I requested from my colleagues on the board that we schedule a homeowner town hall in the month of October. They agreed. October was perfect because summer was over. It's just before the holidays. So there was a greater likelihood that we would get a good turnout of homeowners. And 30 days out from that October town hall, Board President Underwood took it upon himself, without consulting the rest of the board, and contacted Mayor Penny Lilburn of the city of Highland and asked her to attend our town hall forum. Penny, of course, accepted. President Underwood informed the rest of the board of it, and I responded saying, hey, I think it's great that Penny's coming out to speak to the homeowners, but keep in mind this is our homeowner forum, and we have to reserve time for homeowners to funnel up their ideas, their concerns, their suggestions to us as the board. But for those of you that attended, you saw that Mr. Underwood took 4 questions and then called it a night. Underwood didn't even bother at the initial start of the town hall introduce the board to the members. So it conveyed to me that perhaps Mr. Underwood really doesn't want to hear from the homeowners. In any event, when you look at the board calendar that we discussed at the board meeting last week, I had requested that we add to the board calendar 2 additional homeowner town halls for the year 2026. The first one I requested was to be a budget town hall that we typically accustomedly do every February. And if there's any meeting that you want to attend, that's probably the most significant and important meeting to attend, because that's where the board and staff will deliver the upcoming budget for the next fiscal year, and gives you an opportunity to ask questions and see exactly what went into the budget and if we're going to have an assessment increase or not. So the board agreed to that. That is going to take place immediately after the February 25th board meeting. The time hasn't been determined yet, but expect 6 or 7 o'clock. I would encourage you to come out for that meeting because, again, it is a critical meeting. Last year, the board didn't bother to remind us of the budget town hall, and there was only one homeowner that showed up for that town hall. And guess who that homeowner was? It was myself. I was the only one in attendance, and I don't fault the members for not attending. I lay the fault at the feet of the board and management because they failed in their duty to communicate this town hall to the membership. They didn't send out postcards as we typically do. They didn't send out email blasts as we typically do as well. And again, it told me that they really didn't want to hear from the membership. And the second town hall that I'm requesting that the board add to the calendar for this year is, again, to be in October. I presented that to the board at the meeting last Wednesday. Underwood said, he wants to have the captain of the police come out and speak to the members, which is great. But as I told Gary, I said, Gary, these elected officials have calendars that are out far in advance, and now's the time to get with the police captain and see if he's available in the month of October. Gary pushed it off and put it, I believe, on the agenda for February to discuss. So hopefully we can get a town hall in October. And there's one in February, one in October, and hopefully we'll be able to take more than 4 questions. And then for those of you that are familiar with the Bledsoe Gulch, specifically the south end of the gulch, right below Baseline Avenue at Church, behind the Church of God, you will have noticed that over the years that concrete drainage swale has been eroded by rainstorms over the last several years, to the point that it's very unsightly. It is indeed a safety hazard, and indeed an erosion hazard as well. As the more rains we continue to get, the more the slopes in that area continue to erode. So we've been aware of this for the last 4 to 5 years. Staff recently obtained a grant for $108,000 to go towards the reconstruction of the swale. Staff had employed the services of Hudson Construction to come out and bid, as well as Signature Landscaping to come out and bid. Why they had a landscaping company come out and do a construction bid is beyond me, and that explains why the huge disparity in cost. Hudson Construction came back at about a $538,000 project, and Signature Landscape, their bid was about $237,000. So there's a huge disparity in the two bids. So staff is working on getting a third proposal from another construction company to see exactly what it's going to cost to rebuild that concrete swale in the gulch. Keep in mind, it's going to be costly. And even with the $108,000 towards a $500,000 project, you're still looking at $400,000 coming out of reserves. The board voted unanimously, 5-0, to appoint Deborah Wright as chairwoman of the Financial Monitoring Committee. The board also voted 5-0 to appoint Marcia Lewis to serve as chairwoman on our newly formed Landscaping Committee. And then finally, with regards to the board recap, I want to talk a little bit about the Spring Lake Clubhouse. For those of you that have ever been to the clubhouse for an event or rented the clubhouse for an event, you know that the acoustics there are horrific. They really are. I'm a member of the Highland Chamber of Commerce, and the chamber has a monthly luncheon at our clubhouse every month. And it is embarrassing for me as a representative of VHR to attend the chamber meetings and have business leaders complain to you because the acoustics are so bad. You're sitting next to somebody and you can't even hear what that person's saying because of terrible acoustics. And this past Wednesday, the chamber had County Supervisor Don Rao attend and speak to the chamber. I missed that meeting because of a scheduling conflict. And in many respects, I'm glad I missed it because I didn't want to have somebody of Don Rao's caliber, being a county supervisor, attend and face the embarrassment because of the acoustics. Nonetheless, the board's been aware of it, and the board is in unanimous consensus that something needs to be done with regards to the acoustics. In September last year, staff came back with a proposal to add window coverings, thinking that these honeycomb window coverings would eliminate the acoustical noise in that room. I pushed back and said, look, I think we really need to look at this in more depth and a more complete way because we need to do it right. So staff went back and contacted a few vendors to do a study on what needs to be done. A couple of vendors say, look, a study's not worth the cost because it is a small area, but here's what we recommend. It was area rugs, it was window coverings, it was ceiling panels and wall panels. I happen to think ceiling panels and wall panels is the way to go. However, as it always goes, the board didn't side with me. The board voted 4-1 on Wednesday to install honeycomb window coverings and a few area rugs. So cross your fingers and hope that the acoustics in that clubhouse can be improved. I don't think that's going to solve it, but the board did say if that doesn't work, we'll come back and look at it again. But in my opinion, time is of the essence. We remodeled that facility. We call it a remodel back in 2022. In my opinion, it was a half-ass remodel, and something needs to be done because that clubhouse should leave an impression on anybody who visits that clubhouse or rents that facility. And I'll give you an example. You go to other associations, and I'm going to use Del Webb as an example. You go to Solera in Beaumont, Altus, Four Seasons, or even Sun Lakes, all in that Beaumont Banning area. You tour their clubhouses, and that's going to leave a lasting impression on you. And it's going to give you an indication on what their campus looks like. So, too, you rent a facility down at the Sterling Natural Resource Center for East Valley Water, and that room is also going to give you an indication as to what East Valley Water's operation is all about. It's a very immaculate facility, and it coincides with the way they run their operation. Sadly, however, you come into the Spring Lake Clubhouse and you see how dull it is. You have white tile with white grout. That white grout is dirty. There's no decorations or anything on the walls. It's very, very cold. No window coverings, and the acoustics are terrible. That too gives you an indication as to how EHR is ran, and I'll leave it at that. Moving on to the conditional use permit for the Verizon cell tower, I was recently asked as to what my position was regarding this tower, and let me just say that I understand that there's a need to improve cell coverage here in our community, and I support a cell tower being placed in the community. I just don't support the proposed location. And I submitted my correspondence to the city back in December, listing 5 or 6 reasons with supporting citations. I'm not going to go through every one, but I'm going to give you 2 of the most critical ones that I stated. Number 1, our board of directors failed in their responsibility to inform the membership of the cell tower going in. There was zero transparency. It wasn't until I brought it forward to the membership that the board finally came public and stated that they were looking at putting this Verizon cell tower on the southeast corner of Baseline and Church, behind the Church of God. In my opinion, had they told the membership about their plans, had they held a public hearing of sorts, whereby the membership could come out and speak to the board both in favor and opposition, I think 2 things would have happened. Number 1, we probably would have walked away with a better understanding as to why that location has been selected. And number 2, there was a likelihood where working together, the board with the homeowners, collectively, we may have found an alternative location for that cell tower. But because they failed in their responsibility, that cell tower is now going before the Highland Planning Commission for approval. The second reason why I don't support the cell tower going in is for health and safety reasons. And let me see if I can share my screen here. Recently, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. gave an interview, gave an interview to USA Today back on the 16th of January, saying that wireless radiation is a major health concern. And he goes on to say that there's 10,000 studies on EMR, electromagnetic radio waves, and EMFs, electromagnetic frequency waves, that have ill effects, including cancer tumor growth. It goes on to say that the FCC, the Federal Communication Commission, as well as Congress, are looking to propose legislation that takes approval away from local municipalities from approving these cell tower locations. So doubtful that is going to do anything to stop the existing proposal of the Verizon cell tower from going in at its current location, but that was interesting to see that. So those are the reasons why I don't support the tower going into its proposed location. I do recognize the need for better coverage. I just don't support its current location. I spoke to a commissioner on the Planning Commission for the City of Highland, and they confirmed to me that the CUP is on the agenda for February 17th at 6 p.m. at City Hall. So for those of you that want to come out and address the conditional use permit for the Verizon cell tower with the Highland Planning Commission, whether you're in favor or in opposition, plan on coming out 6 o'clock p.m. on the 17th of February at City Hall, which is off Baseline, just adjacent to Kuka's Restaurant. And then moving on, finally talking about the Board of Directors election coming up later this spring. As you know, there are 5 members, 5 homeowners that serve on your Board of Directors. And every year there's an election. In the even number years, 2 seats are up. In the odd number years, 3 seats are up. So with 2026 being an even number year, 2 seats are up for election this year. And those seats are currently held by Robert Hamilton and Gary Underwood. Bob Hamilton has served roughly 4 years, 2 terms. And Bob is a very nice gentleman. He truly is. But Bob is not engaged. Outside of taking a vote, which usually is with the majority, Bob has no input, 0 input. Gary Underwood he's served as president now and president in the past. Gary has served at least 20 years on the board, and he is a part of what I call the ruling class. And the ruling class consists of Gary Underwood, Fred Jogger, who was defeated last year, Pat McCurry, and Dan Batista. All 4 of them are close friends. All 4 of them have served 20 years, with the exception of Dan Batista. I think he served 10 or a dozen years. Pat McCurry has served over 30 off and on. Jogger and Underwood has served at least 20 years each. And speaking of Fred Jogger, since his defeat last year, has been running, in my opinion, a shadow board. He's in constant communication with Gary Underwood and other board members. And in fact, the board of directors back in October removed me as the treasurer for East Highlands Ranch and the liaison to the Financial Monitoring Committee, and in my place stuck Fred Jogger. So Fred Jogger is the liaison for the Finance Committee, reporting back to the board, and Fred is not even a board member. So Fred's been running a shadow board, if you will, and I anticipate he will run this year, and by all means, he should be defeated. Going back to Gary, the problem is when individuals serve as long as Jogger, Batista, McCurry, and Underwood has served, several things happen. Number one, that length of service from so many on the board stifles innovation, it stifles creativity, and it truly stifles vision. And in its place, these individuals, in my opinion, lose sight of who they serve. Instead of serving the membership, they end up serving their own self-interest. And I can cite numerous examples of Gary Underwood serving his own self-interest. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that Gary's time has been well served, but his time is up. He needs to step aside, not run again, and give an opportunity to others to run. Because I will tell you that, it takes a majority, 3 out of the 5, in order to get anything accomplished on the board. And while I desire and profess that we need change in our community, I'm just one vote. And I can tell you these 4 board members that we have currently enjoy voting against me. So I'm not going to get the support that I think I'm not going to get the support that I need in order to make the change and move our community forward. So I'm asking for as many candidates as possible to come out and to run this year. If you have a desire to serve your community, if you have a desire to serve on the board, make sure that you file your candidate statement by the 23rd of February, and make sure that gets turned in to the office at 5 o'clock, before 5 o'clock that day. Contact me if you want to run. I'll be more than happy to assist you, more than happy to guide you, give you some best practices that's worked for me over the years. I'll even bring you on this podcast and do an interview with you if you want, and get you out in front of the membership. But we need more candidates to run. We need more people to get involved, because time is of the essence, and we need to make some significant changes here at East Highlands Ranch. So again, if you have a desire to run, get a hold of me. My contact information will be on this email that you received this link on to this podcast, and I'll do whatever I can to assist you. So with that, I know we're running along, probably 30, 35 minutes right now, so I want to thank you all for watching. I want to thank you all for your support. If you like this podcast, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below and give this video a thumbs up. But again, thank you all for watching, and we'll talk to you the next time on the Ranch Report. Goodbye for now. Thank you.